Hey YouTube, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles, and today we are going to talk about what to look for when you're buying a snake, both online and in person. We're going to go over some of the questions I think you should be asking, some of the things I think you should be requesting, how to go about doing that. And it's not rude. It's a way to protect yourself as a buyer to give you the best chance of getting a healthy animal and a good product. That's what we're after, right? If you're going to grow your stock, you got to start with a good product. And this is a way to help ensure you're getting that several times over. So we're going to cover those things. Then we're done with that. We're going to flip over to Patreon. On Patreon, we'll go a little more in depth. We'll talk about some ways at a show that I like to deal with pricing, how we kind of do that, how sometimes you can open some negotiation tactics, and how you can make that product if you want to buy a bunch of product at one show. Because typically when I go, if I have several animals I want, I'm going to go with a budget in mind. I'm going to tell you how to stretch that dollar a little further, and how to get that seller to oftentimes work with you a little bit more. So we'll cover that on Patreon. I mean, after all, they're paying me money, I should try to save some, right? It's kind of how it works. But let's start when you're buying online. So I think a lot of the market right now is online, especially during the pandemic. It went heavy online. Shows are coming back. They're going to come back with a rage. I will always like in person better. I'm a talkative fella. That makes sense. But a lot of people have found, too, they'd rather sit at home and buy online and sell online and never go out because they're an introvert or they have agoraphobia or hell, I don't know. But if they like to do that, I got nothing against it. But let's tell you some of the ways that you can do that and try to be safe for yourself. So the first thing I want to cover is when you're buying online, one, I will never buy online unless I can talk to an individual. That doesn't mean necessarily for those of us who like to do things through text. If I can text back and forth with an individual seller, I'm good with that. If I can call them on the phone and talk to them in person and knock this out really quick, that's even better for me. But some people prefer the text or the email exchange. It doesn't matter how you're doing it, but those conversations have to happen. I will never, and I would recommend that you never do it either, but you're going to do what you want to do. Look at an animal, click on a picture, click on purchase, and send money. Don't do it. Don't do it. Too many things can go wrong. There's too many things that are unknown when you do that. And it only takes a few minutes or a day of conversation to make sure that what you're getting is exactly what you want. So the first thing I'm going to ask about if I see a snake online I really like is I'm going to ask about the size of that snake. And I ask a lot of these questions like in one contact. If you look on like Morph Market, there's a contact the seller, how quick the seller responds. I will contact them, I will send them my info, and I will put a lot of this stuff in one thing. And some of this is a grain of salt. This is more so if I'm buying from somebody I don't know. If I'm ordering from, BHB, some of this crap you don't have to do, okay? But the fact of the matter is when you don't know that name, and this isn't a knock on new people, but when you don't know that name, you don't know if they're a real person. You don't know if they're a legit business. So there's some steps that you need to take to ensure that they are, and it should be pretty easy to show that they are. So the first thing I ask about is size, because they may have posted the ad and said 83 grams. The ad may be 3 weeks old. That snake may weigh more now. They may not have a weight listed, and you may, like I heard somebody recently got one shipped from a large company that was in the 50s, which that should never happen. And I don't want to bag on any company for doing that, but you should never ship a snake when it weighs a ball python when it weighs in the 50 grams. Hold on, I have to reptiles. Sorry, reptile. Okay, I don't want to say anything else about that, but it should weigh more than that. It should be at least, in my opinion, 80 grams. So ask for the size. The next thing to ask for is ask for pictures. And you may be saying, but Matt, they got 3 photos posted online. That's great. Ask for more. I always ask for additional pictures. The reason I do that is when I don't know who I'm dealing with and they can send me a couple pics, especially if it's, and I don't even care if they're nice pics. Like the dude just grabs a snake and sends his hand and takes pics. That's why I send to people all the time. I'm cool with that. I want to see that that animal that I'm looking at is the same animal in the photograph on their ad. I want to line up a little bit of pattern to make sure I'm seeing the same animal. And if they start telling me, oh, well, I can't get any more pics, Really? Red flag. They say, yeah, I can get those to you tomorrow. Okay, no problem. I get it. I'm not at my facility all the time either. Or it'll be at 2 days, but I can get you pics. Cool. But I'm usually also not buying a $50 snake online. $50 snake, I might just say, okay, and risk it. But on a high-end snake, I want more pics. And then I'm going to take, Kurt brought up a great point. You can take a few of those pics they send you, and you can run them through the Google image search. You want to make sure they're an original pic. You want to make sure they're not taking pics off some other dude's website. I will pick a few pieces of pattern on the snake that they sent me, on the pic they sent me, and compare it to the snake in the ad to line that up and make sure that, yes, in fact, I think this guy actually has that snake. You're about to send somewhere between $500 and $5,000 to somebody that you've never met, and you want to just trust them. Let me tell you, like, I got car warranties I can sell you that are extended. I've got some, you got warrants too, by the way, that you need to send me gift cards for. Oh, your family member's in jail, gift cards will... There's all kinds of scams out there. This is another one, y'all. So compare that picture, get a picture, make sure they literally have the animal and they didn't just steal the image or make an ad, especially with somebody that you've never heard of. Big, big thing right there. Next thing I want to know, and this may sound like you shouldn't have to ask it, but hey, is that snake feeding on its own? They'll probably be like, yeah, and that's how they should be. But I have seen people get a snake, and like I say, you get a snake that's 50 grams, and you're having to assist feed it. You have to question if they ever even fed that snake on its own before they send it to you. So it's always ask, hey, is it feeding on its own? And follow that up with, again, somebody's going to ask at the same time, and what is it eating, live or frozen thawed? I at least want to know what it's on, because if I'm getting the snake and they tell me it's been feeding live, it may not eat frozen thawed right away. I want to know that as a buyer so I can be sure that I can get the food source that animal needs until I get it switched to what I want to feed it. So is it eating? Have you fed it on? Is it fed on its own, live or frozen thawed? Things like that. And then when I come back, if I have a problem and I reach out to them again, at least already have some information. They're not going to be like, oh, well, yeah, I was feeding that live, and I'm a month in trying to feed frozen thawed. Like, I would already have known that. Try to get that snake going. So that's a good question to ask. 2, I will never buy a snake from somebody that can't tell me the parents. Especially when it comes to a het, y'all. People have hets listed, het clown, het desert ghost, hets that actually add a amount of money to the animal to an extent. If they can't tell you the parents... Sorry, man, I ain't buying your animal, especially on a het. Even on something that's not het, that's a visual, where I can see the animal, I still want to know the parents. And the reason I want to know the parents is, what if that thing throws something oddball later, and maybe it was a bad expression of yellow belly, and now I'm seeing a snake, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, it could be yellow belly, because this thing's parents had yellow belly in it, and I start down the right path and figure out what that animal has thrown, because I know what the genetics are possible. So I may buy something they list as a pastel Inchi, and come to find out the parents were a yellow belly Inchi and a super pastel. And then when I have a baby, it looks weird, and I start looking, oh, I better look and compare to see if maybe this has Inchi in it, and maybe yellow belly, maybe my pastel Inchi is a pastel Inchi yellow belly, right? And the yellow belly just didn't express very well. So I always ask the parents. They should be able to tell you that unless they didn't produce it, which that brings us to our next question. Did you produce the snake? If somebody is going to sell me a flipped animal, I want to know. I typically like to buy animals produced by the person selling them. There are exceptions. Everybody who's been in this for a while is going to flip an animal or two. They tell you they never have, and they're either A, lying, or B, haven't been in it very long. Because at some point in time, as they're expanding, they're likely going to buy animals and then decide, man, I'm going to sell this one. I don't need it after all. Or a guy wants to get out and they buy 6 of them and they're only going to keep 4, and they're going to sell the extra 2 that they didn't produce. We've done that. It's not a very big part of our business. We're very upfront about it with people, which is good. You should be upfront about it. But I also want to know, am I buying from a guy that all he does is flip animals, or the majority of his business is importing and flipping, or which an import doesn't hold as much value typically as one that's produced, unless you're talking about like a brand new morph, and then that's different. But I want to know who I'm buying from and how they do business. I don't trust somebody who predominantly flips animals as much as I do somebody who produces animals. The guy who's willing to buy and sell right away without letting them get acquainted, get healthy, spend some time with them to know that animal is not typically the guy I'm going to send my money to. So I always ask, is this something you produced, or those parents did you produce go kind of hand in hand. The next thing is, hey, how do you ship? I love when people ask me, like how I do shipping, because I can be upfront with them. We live in the Midwest. It gets really, really cold here, and we have pretty strict rules about when we ship. So I'm going to tell them I ship on Mondays, because right now it's the only day I have available. Soon, within about 15 months, I'll be able to ship Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. By the way, never accept shipments from people who ship on Thursday. And if anybody ships on Friday, it's a scam. So only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's because delays and things like that. You want to make sure you get it in 24 hours. If not, 1 day shipping, that it only turns into 2 day, and it doesn't turn into, oh, I know we sent that Thursday for Friday arrival, it didn't make it, and you can get it Monday. That's bad. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I also only ship when the weather's at certain levels. Typically, I like my load to be above 40. That's because I know in the evening my snake that I ship is going to take a 2.5 hour truck ride to the nearest airport, fly to another airport, wait at that airport, get on a plane, fly to its final destination. So because that 2.5 hour truck ride in the evening and being loaded at night, I want a load that's 40 or higher. That gives me a little leeway. So if the weatherman's wrong, he says 40 and ends up being 37, we're going to be okay. If I'm rocking at 35 and the weatherman's wrong and it's 32, now I'm sweating it out. So I always tell people up front, and that means they may have to wait a bit for the weather to be good for me. But most people are cool with that. They know why you're doing it. But ask, hey, how do you ship? And somebody's like, oh, I'll ship it tomorrow, and I live in the Arctic Circle, and it's February. Might be a red flag. So that is some of the things I always ask. Another thing we would recommend is do a little research from who you're buying from. I mean, obviously, if you're buying from like BHB, you know who they are. If you're buying from Bob Clark, you know who Bob is, or you should. If you're buying from, Justin, you know who Justin is. You don't have to go quite as in depth with those folks, because their reputation is going to answer a lot of those questions already, right? I know if one of those dudes is selling the snake, they actually have the snake. None of those guys I just mentioned are going to risk their reputation trying to make an extra grand by selling a snake they don't have, they stole. I also know that I may ask they produced it, because some of those guys may have gotten a collection in. I know Brian has gotten collections in before and sold part of them, or when he was running out of animals, has purchased from people he knows and then held them for a while to make sure, and then resold. So I may ask, hey, is this one that you produced? They'll be upfront about that. But there's some of this you don't have to do as much if it's a known person like that. But if you don't know who it is, a little bit of research, because you may find out, hey, this guy screwed me. You start reading that, or you start seeing this guy's changed company names 4 or 5 times. Maybe you should proceed with a little more caution, right? Maybe you need a few extra picks. Maybe you shouldn't do that deal. So definitely a little bit of research on who you're dealing with. Now take that with a grain of salt, because everybody's pissed somebody off. I got a guy out there who I know wrote us a shipping review on an animal I didn't even ship. It wasn't even one I sold. Literally, I middleman something. I took him, put him in contact with a guy that had an animal. I said, here you two go. He sent me the money since he had my information. I gave it to them. They shipped the snake, and they screwed the shipping all up because they didn't send it overnight. They used an old crappy box. They used a broken piece of foam. They used an expired heat pack that didn't heat. And the guy got an Angolan python that was shipped over, instead of 1 day shipping, 2 day shipping, that had gotten out of its container and had gotten on top of the broken foam in a reused box. I'm not the one who did that. I was pretty clear I'm not the one shipping it. And somehow that was still on me. Now you can bet I'd shoot ass on the person who did do that, because I was pissed, and I told them I would never ever do that with them again. I would never ever, middleman from the beginning. They could handle their own shit. I'd say, hey, talk to this guy, but you gotta take some with a grain of salt, And if you see something bad, you can always ask the person you're buying from about it, and they should be able to tell you what happened, or they should have some good things to offset that. So that's what we look for online. Let's talk about it in person. And we're going to get some snakes out on this one. I prefer doing business in person. When you get to do business in person, the first thing you should do is inspect an animal. I'm going to give you a couple examples of this right here. Some I would buy and some I would not. Now, this little guy right here, little pied, and if I was shopping, okay, I'll I'll be blunt. If I pulled this out of a table, I probably wouldn't buy it. Let me tell you why. I don't know if it's even going to hit the 80-gram threshold. The reason it's in here is this is one we're raised up to keep. He has given, or she has given me a few struggles. Let's see here. She probably, see, 58. So I could look at that snake and say, man, this is tiny. So this thing should not be being sold. This is on a table, and I look at something this size. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to worry about. The second thing, too, is when they're this size, often you're going to see that spine like that, right? I don't much care for that. So this would not be an animal I'd buy on the table. The other thing is it's scratched up a few scales when it ate, so I would want to know what was going on with that. But then in this case, I know this animal is going to be fine. It'll shed those off. It's getting close to doing that, and it is eating well. It was just born small. I would never have this animal on the table. This is one I'm keeping, but and for whatever reason, the one I kept is the biggest pain in the ass out of the clutch. You kind of are. But this is not one that if it was on a table, I would recommend you buy. This would never be on my table for sale. It's too small. Just wouldn't do it. So let me put this one back and show you something a little bit different. This is a snake from the same year. This is a, actually, yeah, 21. This is a 2021 as well. This is a pastel leopard blitz, I believe. Let me double check that. Make sure. Pastel blitz, sorry. No leopard in there, it's a different one. Het Exanthic. And this one is actually, it is older than the other one. The other one was a late from the year. This one was a few clutches before, maybe a month and a half difference. Oh, this one took off a lot better. If I saw this on the table, this is an animal I would look at if I was inspecting. And what are we going to inspect? Well, one, look at the size difference here. This is definitely over 80 grams. This is on a big side. This, if I was on the table, probably would have already sold it by now if I was doing shows. You can see the spine protrusion isn't doing like the other one I was showing was. I said we wouldn't even have for sale yet. This animal overall looks healthy. The tongue flick looks good. The movement looks good. The body is nice. I mean, feels good and strong. Eyes look nice and clear. I mean, everything that I'm looking at this body, the belly looks good. See, the scales all look good. We don't have any stuck shed. No damaged scales on it. Even that pie I showed you with a scratched up scale like that, even if it was of size, I wouldn't take it to a show because I don't want that to shed off because I know what that's from, but a buyer wouldn't, so I'd want to clean that up first, right? I would then look at the overall pattern. What am I looking at? Is this pastel? Well, that's pretty damn obvious. Is this blitz like the guy says it is? In this case, it's me. I can see blitz all over the snake. You can see it there. You can really see it coming through there. You can see it through there. You can really see it over here, there. I mean, all over. It's definitely got blitz going on in there. And just how wonky the pattern is. This is a very, very classic example of pastel blitz. Then we have the other part that's Het Exanthic, right? So I would ask the seller on this table if I'm there buying, because again, I want to know the parents. Hey, it says Het Exanthic. What was the pairing? That seller should be able to tell me that. They have a lot of snakes, like in my case. I may say, give me 1 second. I have to look at my clutch stuff, which I take that information with me. So I could say, okay, that number is this. This is the pairing. You know, this is the animal. I could get relations all the way back. That's kind of how we would do it. In this case, I believe the blitz was a female. I think I used a pastel or super pastel Exanthic as a male. Don't quote me on that without looking it up. But they should be able to tell you that, which we'd be able to do. And so that covers a lot of that. The other thing I'm going to do is I would take something, if I had it, you can just use your hand. Nice and clean, right? See that? And I would just take my hand if I'm looking at the snake, and I would just take it and I would just do one of these down the body. And I would look at my hand still. As you can see, there's some pin marks there from work, but there's nothing crawling on my hand, right? Nothing moving, and that is pin. It doesn't come off. And what am I looking for there? I'm looking for mites. Now understand, too, you can go to a show, buy 3 snakes, go home, feel like you bought from somebody that didn't have mites, check them, and actually might have bought from somebody that didn't have mites, and then have mites show up. It's a show. You may get them on your clothes. I've gone with no mites and come home dealing with mites before. It does happen, but that's a quick inspection on that actual animal to see that animal's carrying. If it is, and you get crawling mites on your hand, don't buy it. Let the seller know. He's probably going to treat that thing and pull it off of the line. And it may not, and I honestly wouldn't even hold that against them too much unless all of their animals are that way, because they could have had somebody else look at the animal who just deposited from somebody else. That's the one bad thing it shows. But I do always check, and then I clean my hands afterwards. That's why we keep some things at the table. So a little squirty squirt before, a little squirty squirt after. If somebody's going to do that with my animals, I usually prefer that they just clean their hands first. Yeah, right? So that's what we're going to look at. This would be an animal that I would have no qualms buying on a table. Again, of course, I'm still going to ask, what's this thing been eating? In our case, I'm going to tell you we fed everything alive, no frozen thawed. But this is pretty common. And then did we produce it? Fuck yeah, we produced it. So the last thing I would ask, if I'm at a show, I would ask the seller either to let me, or if they want to do it, either one, I would ask them if they could sex it or if they would want me to do it. Now on that, that's only if I'm going to buy the animal. So if this animal is listed as a female and that's what I'm wanting, I'd be like, okay, hey man, everything looks good. We've come to a price. One last thing, I'm cool with what we're talking about, but can we make sure it's a female? Can you either sex it for me or let me sex it just to confirm the sex? And I'm going to buy it at that point. Now, I wouldn't ask to do that unless I'm actually going to buy the snake. And as a seller, if somebody asks me, hey, can we confirm sex? I tell them, yep, absolutely, but let's make sure you're going to buy it first. And the reason is I don't want to stress these animals out, sex them 5 or 6 times. But if you're going to buy it and that's what you want to do before you buy it, we'll do that before you buy it. And most people should be cool with that. So that's kind of how we look at that. Now this snake, for reference, the other one weighed 50 grams. This thing's probably, I don't know, probably closer to 2 something. So it don't have to be this size. This would be pretty big for a table. I'll get you one that's probably more accurate. No, not even 2 something. Right over 3. So let me get you something else that we just sold, literally. Show you one more, and this would be very typical for an animal on the table for sale as well. I said I wasn't going to be in here, then I went in here. Kurt should know by now, I'm kind of all over the map all the time. It was you. This would be like really typical for what size you'll find at a show. I mean, sometimes you'll find a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller, but this is, you know, and again, we can do the same thing. That's a fly, die fly. Here's a way you can tell. Whenever you see bugs, if you wonder if it's a fly or if you wonder if it's a mite and you're not sure, take that bug, put it on your fingernail, wipe it. Wipe it. See how it leaves no streak? No streak means it's not a mite. If it was a mite, the blood meal would leave a streak. But we had some dead. Always in the baby room, somebody won't eat. We'll have a dead rodent that causes some flies or a little more poop, things like that. So, but again, we can see, take a clean hand, wipe it down. Same thing. Nothing moving on there. Just a little bit of stuff. If you're not sure, do it again. There you go. Looks good. Visual inspection. Body looks good. Everything again. Spine looks good. So let's check the size of that one. It's at 162. This is really typical of what you're going to find size-wise at a show. Again, between probably about 90 and 200 is pretty common. But that's kind of how we look at buying things. We literally just sold. They're not all fly. Stupid flies. You had a lot over there. I let a lot out the other day. It's because one of my snakes had killed a rat. I thought it ate, and it didn't. It just was sitting on it. Yeah. So that is where we would go. When I sold this online, we knew we were going to sell it. It was one of our Patreon specials, so I did actually sex this online to confirm for people too on a live video. That's about all I got. That's what you're going to want to do. Most of the show, like I said, just for a quick recap, online, get pictures, check feeding, check their reputation, ask for parents. In person, ask for parents, inspect the damn snake, right? Look it over, just check the overall health, check the size, check all those things to make sure it's going good. Ask what it's been feeding, ask parents, especially if it's dealing with a het. By the way, this is also het exanthic. And then confirm the sex. Kurt, anything else you'd like to add?
No.
All right, guys, that's how you buy. That's how you buy and make sure you're not getting scammed, to make sure you're getting the right animal. How do we know this? I've bought missexed animals before. I have never been scammed online because I'm pretty damn cautious. And but yeah. So anyway, that's all we got. We will see you all next time.